Dear students, welcome to this lecture of Strategic Human Resource Management. This is a topic of Unit 2nd, and I am Dr. Tripti Barthwal. I am Director, Lal Bahadur Shastri Institute of Management and Development Studies, Lucknow. So, the topic which we are discussing today, as you can see, is compensation, and compensation is a term I am sure you must be familiar with. You must have studied this term in the human resource management paper in one of your semesters, maybe in the first year you must have studied this. So, I am sure that you are well versed with this term. So, let us take a little preview of what this term means, and then we will discuss further. Compensation is the human resource management function that deals with every type of reward individuals receive in exchange for performing an organizational task. Now, it is a common knowledge, you must be aware that an HR manager performs two types of functions. One is the managerial functions, which are common to all managers, and certain functions are the operative functions, which are specific to the HR manager. And what are these functions? These functions are procurement or the acquisition of human resource, development, then compensation, then integration, and then separation. So, compensation, very well you can understand that it is a very important function of an organization, of the HR department, and obviously it is like you can say that it is type of a backbone, because all employees who are coming to the organization, they are coming also to receive the compensation for their efforts and their time. So, that is how this function becomes all the more very important. So, it refers to every type of reward or return which an employee receives in exchange of performing any duty, any responsibility of the organization. It is a particular kind of price, that is the price of labor, the effort, time, energy which an employee is giving to the organization, and what is he getting in return of that, that is what we call as compensation. Compensation refers to all forms of financial returns, tangible services and benefits employees receive as part of an employment relationship. So, it refers to all financial returns, right, anything which we can measure or we can tell in terms of money. So, these can be certain tangible services and benefits or as a part of employment relationship. It is anything which we are receiving as part of employment relationship, that is very, very important. Otherwise, it is a charity. If there is no employment relationship and somebody is being paid something, then either it can be a charity, or it can be a certain fees of a consultant or something who is not a part of the organization in terms of employment relationship, which may be associated with employee services to the employer, and any other payment which the employee receives or benefits he enjoys in lieu of such payment. So, any types, it can be in the form of cash, it can be in the form of benefits, but anything which the employee is receiving in return for his services to the organization is known as compensation. Now, the types of compensation, that we have just seen that compensation can include variety of things. So, anything which the employee is receiving in return for the services he is rendering to the organization. So, it includes the base pay, the commissions, the overtime wages, tip income, even the tip income to, like we give tips to waiters in restaurants or etc. So, that is also a part of compensation. Bonus pay, recognition pay, benefits, stock options, the company issues certain shares to the employees. So, that is also a part of compensation, and other non-cash benefits. So, what can be the non-cash benefits, like company conveyance, to go to the office and to return to home, or maybe like for example a paid vacation. So, that can also be a non-cash benefit. So, there are the factors which influence compensation. right, because compensation package varies from person to person, from area to area, from industry to industry, from company to company. So, what are those factors, what are those reasons because of which these compensation, amount of compensation varies. So, these factors can be broadly divided into two categories. The first are the external factors which are outside the organization, over which the organization has no control as such. So, the first set of factors we will discuss are the external factors. The first factor here is demand and supply of labor. You are very well versed with the fact that in economics the basic concept is of demand and supply, and demand and supply determines the price in the market. So, when there is a lot of demand but there is less supply, then in that case the price goes up. But when the demand is less but the supply is surplus, there is lot of supply, demand is less, supply is more, what happens? The price falls down. Similarly, for a particular skill, for a particular position, if there are lot of candidates, lot of potential candidates available, that means the supply is too much but the vacancies are limited. In that case, what will happen? The price of labor will go down, right, because the supply is too much. On the contrary, if the supply is limited, we do not have very competent potential candidates available, and we have good number of vacancies. So, there is lot of demand but the supply is less, what will happen? The price of labor will go down, right. So, that is demand and supply of labor. So, there in that case the compensation package will be less. Then the cost of living, you must be knowing that depends on the city also where we are working. Our package varies according to the city also where we are working, and also it varies according to the cost of living. As the cost of living increases, just normally we call mehengai increases, then in that case the compensation package also increases, right, maybe not in that proportion everywhere, but it does increase. So, that is cost of living which determines our compensation. Third is the society. The society, because the society, if the society believes in dignity of labor, that means every job is important, every work is important, then there will not be many variations in the compensation packages across jobs. But if the society places more emphasis, more importance on certain jobs and considers that the other jobs are less important or of less status, in that case the compensation package for those jobs will be less. Then of course, the bargaining power of labor unions, trade unions. The more the unions are stronger, the more will be the compensation packages. This goes without saying, because unions will negotiate more and more to get more and more from the employees. So, if they are powerful, then that can be done, and in that case the compensation package rises. Then economy, economy, if the economy is booming, if everything is doing very well, business is doing very well, obviously the package can be higher. But if the economy is in a poor state, say for example post COVID, the economy has been hit down. So, what will happen? As a result of that, people are facing, forget about hikes in the pay, people are facing pay cuts, many people are being laid off also, but many people are facing pay cuts. So, that is there. And the last external factor over which the organization has no control is the labor law, which the government formulates and changes also, modifies also from time to time. These are important. Why? Because there may be certain industries, there may be certain professions in which the government may prescribe a minimum wage, or the government may prescribe the level of DA or certain benefits which need to be given to the employees. So, the government may change the compensation related acts, and in that case like the Minimum Wages Act, the Payment of Wages Act, then the Payment of Bonus Act. So, these are all gratuity, the Payment of Gratuity Act. So, government may change provisions of these, and as a result of that the compensation package of companies may be affected. Then coming to the internal factors. The first internal factor which are in our control as a company is the compensation policy of the organization. Now, what do we mean by the compensation policy of the organization? That is, what are the rules governing, what are the guidelines which govern compensation in the organization. And meaning thereby, so for example, in certain organizations, compensation will be determined by merit. Compensation may be determined by performance, in the sense that if you perform, your package will increase, you will be getting incentives. If you do well, if you achieve the targets, you will be getting higher packages, and it does not matter that if you are new or if you are old, the only thing which matters is your performance. On the contrary, there will be certain organizations where the package will be determined by your experience. How many years you have spent with the organization, or maybe how many years have you spent in that particular job. So, depending on the compensation policy of the organization, the compensation packages of employees will vary. Then obviously the next very important factor, very limiting factor also in many cases, is the organization's ability to pay. Organizations, companies with deep pockets, you know, they have a lot of money, obviously compensation packages will be higher there, will be attractive there. But in organizations which are not earning that kind of a profit, which are not earning that kind of a revenue, in those cases, because the organization does not have the ability to pay, the packages of the employees will be lower. Then the third thing is job analysis and job description. You must be familiar with these terms. So, job analysis is like evaluating the job, trying to find out what are the tasks, duties and responsibilities associated with the job, and then seeing and determining what are the skills and qualifications required to perform this job, and then determining the compensation package to us accordingly, right. So, for jobs which have requirements of lot of skills, or maybe very technically qualified people, in that case the package will be higher. But for those jobs wherein you do not require that kind of a technical expertise, then in that case the package can be lower. Similarly, if a job requires us to work in hazardous conditions, right, then probably the package will be higher, certain allowances will be paid to the employees. But if the conditions are normal, then in that case the package will be lower. And the last important factor is the employee himself or herself. How competent the employee is, how committed the employee is, how much the employee is having initiative, he is ready to give his best to the organization, that will also determine the compensation package of employees. If employee who is technically very qualified but does not have the zeal to work, may see his or her package being reduced over a period of time, or maybe not even reduced, people getting more package than them, who may not be as qualified as them, just because they do not have the willingness to work. So, it also depends on the employee himself or herself. Now, coming to the components of compensation. So, the components of compensation, when I receive a salary or when somebody receives pay, then what is it made of? How does it come to a particular amount? So, it refers to the remuneration paid to the workers for the services rendered. It varies according to physical and mental requirements. The primary component of employee salary, which is basis for calculation of other components, is known as the basic wage or salary. So, that is why it is known as basic, because it is the base for calculation of other components. Other components like DA, CCA, gratuity, PF, they will be determined according to the basic pay or basic wage of the employee. This refers to a fixed amount of money that the employee receives prior to any extras being added or payments deductive. before adding anything extra or before deducting anything from this, whatever is the base amount which the employee receives, that fixed amount is known as his or her basic wage. The whole amount of basic salary is part of the take home salary, because there are no deductions in this amount. So, this can be totally taken home. So, that is the take home salary. Other things will be added to this, but the entire basic wage is a take home salary. Then after you deduct something, what you get is the gross salary or the gross pay. Now, what is this? It refers to the salary paid after adding all the benefits and allowances, but before making any deductions of PF and tax. So, after to the basic pay we add certain allowances, but we have not deducted anything from it, then it becomes the gross pay or gross salary. So, gross salary is equal to basic salary plus benefits plus allowances. So, still no deductions have been made from it. Then the third concept of component of compensation is take home or net salary. You must have heard this word often. What is my take home salary, or what will be my take home salary? Students generally ask these questions to their prospective employers. So, what is take home salary? It is the amount of salary received by an employee. What will it include? Obviously basic, it will be there, certain allowances will be there, after making all the deductions. Now, once you make the deductions from the salary, then it becomes net salary or take home salary towards the payment of income tax, LIC premium, contributions to PF, etc. So, whatever deductions have to be made from the salary, after making those deductions, whatever amount is left is obviously our take home salary or net salary. So, take homes or net salary, the formula will be basic salary plus allowances minus all those deductions which have to be made from the salary. Then the next is, this is also a very common term these days, what is CTC, what is the cost to company, how much amount the company will spend on the employee. This is my take home, but totally more than this amount the company is spending, because from here certain deductions have been done, but the company has paid me more amount than that, that is why deductions have been made, and that is why I am receiving some amount of net salary. So, CTC, cost to the company, is the total amount that a company spends on an employee directly or indirectly, right. It refers to the total salary package of the employee, and it is inclusive of all monthly components such as basic pay, reimbursements, various allowances, etc., and all annual components such as gratuity, annual variable pay, annual bonus pay. So, whatever, as I said, the company is spending on the employee is a part of cost to the company. So, CTC is equal to gross salary plus PF plus gratuity. Now, there are certain allowances, these are the various types of or the various nomenclatures of salary or pay. Now, there are certain allowances which employees are entitled, which the company pays to the employees. So, allowances, first allowances can be defined as the amount of something that is allowed. It is come from the word allowed, so anything which is allowed, especially within a set of rules and regulations or for a specified purpose. So, whatever is allowed to be paid to the employee as per the rules or regulations, these are or for a specific purpose, something which the employee has done specifically. So, for that whatever payment is done, those are allowances. So, there are several types of allowances which are paid in addition to basic salary. So, the first is very famous, you must have heard about this, dearness allowance, DA, mehengai bhatta, right. So, it can basically be understood as a component of salary which is some fixed percentage of the basic salary aimed, what is the purpose? When we call it mehengai bhatta, that means whatever has been the rise in the cost of living, because of which the employee can face lot of problems. To compensate for that, the organization, the company gives dearness allowance to the employee. So, it is some percentage, this some fixed percentage is decided from time to time the government decides, and then the organizations, other private organizations, they they decide on their own based on the government's guideline of the basic salary aimed at hedging the impact of inflation, whatever has been the rise in the cost of living. It is calculated as a fixed percentage of the person's basic salary. So, if my basic salary is X, then, and if my dearness allowance is let us say 50%, so 50X plus 50% of X will be paid to me. The purpose of DA is to protect the wage and salary of the employee when there is a rise in prices and consequent increase in the cost of living by suitable adjustments in these wages or salary. Now, another allowance which is very, very important is the HRA or the house rent allowance. It is a part of the salary provided by an employer to his employee for rented accommodation. If an organization has accommodation available for the employees within the campus or outside also the campus, free accommodation, then HRA need not to be paid. But if the employee is living in a rented accommodation, then HRA has to be paid to the employee. Then the third is the conveyance allowance. So, to and fro travel movement for the official purposes, the employee has to be paid conveyance allowance also. This allowance is provided to employees to meet travel expenses from residence to work, and obviously for other official purposes. Then EPF or Employer Provident Fund or Provident Fund, we call it PF simply. Provident fund is an investment both by the employer and the employee each month, the lump sum amount of which acts as an employee's retirement benefits scheme. So, in a PF, in a provident fund as it is called fund, both the employer and employee contribute a fixed amount every month, and that is like saved at a and then after retirement the employee gets that amount. So, it is a very good saving for the employee, especially because it is not merely coming from the employee's salary, but it is also being equal amount is being paid by the employer also. Then other allowances, gratuity, this is also very you must have heard, very common name, gratuity. Gratuity started as a gratuitous payment, gratuitous coming from the word gratitude, that the employers wanted to thank employees for their services, and as a result of that they started paying gratuity. Later on it became a right for the employees, there is a payment of gratuity act also now. So, it is a part of salary that is received by an employee for the services offered by the employee upon him or her taking the job. Though an employee can receive the gratuity amount only after 5 years, it will be deducted by the employer every year. So, employer will deduct gratuity amount, but the employee will be liable to get gratuity only if he has completed 5 years of continuous service with a particular organization. Then there is overtime allowance, obviously when you are working more than the standard time, right. It refers to the extra payment for any hours worked by an employee that exceed their normally scheduled working hours. All employees who are deemed to be workers under the Factories Act or under the Minimum Wages Act are entitled to it at twice the ordinary rate of their wages for the work done in excess of 9 hours on any day. If you are working more than 9 hours in any day, or the worker is working for more than 48 hours in any week, then he is entitled to get overtime allowance, which has been mentioned is the twice of the basic wage. Then CCA, city compensatory allowances, there are certain cities where cost of living is more, there are certain cities where cost of living is less. So, CCA is paid for that only. It is provided to an employee to compensate the employees against the higher cost of living in a metropolitan or large city where the standard of living is higher than the national average. This is especially true for employees of tier 1 cities, and in certain cases for tier 2 and 3 as well, tier 2 cities as well, sorry. Incentive is always given for performance. So, incentive is a positive motivational influence on a person that helps improve his performance. So, other allowances like DA, HRA, CCA will be paid to all employees, but incentive will be paid only for higher performance, only for achieving the targets. Thus, it can be said that all the measures taken by the management to improve the performance of its employees are incentives. Then benefits, the benefits could be the one that are legally mandated ones or the ones that are good to have. So, certain organizations can give only the legal benefits, but there are certain organizations progressive which will give much beyond the legally mandated benefits. For competitive edge, the benefits may be monetary or non-monetary, long term or short term, can be in cash or kind, free or at concessional rates. Like for example, you can buy the products of your company at a concessional rates. So, and may include education, housing, medical, recreational facilities. So, there is a wide variety of things which are there in incentives and provided individually or collectively inside or outside the organizational premises. Both the employer and employee can contribute to it, or only the employer can provide benefits. And so, these were the components of compensation, and what should be the characteristics of a good compensation strategy. Firstly, it should not burn the company's cash flow or maybe the profits of the company. It should be affordable for the company. It should have a cost benefit analysis. Then second is it should be structured, and what should be structured? To ensure employees' efforts are directed to achieving the company's goal. The performance appraisal system should indicate that employees who are doing well, performing well, for them incentives should be given. So, it should be structured in that kind of a way and reasonably competitive. That means it should be in such a way that neither it should burn the finances of the company, but it should also be able to attract the best talent from the market. So, the package should not be so low that good employees are not attracted to the organization. So, these are the various aspects of the compensation strategy. I hope that you have been able to understand the concept of compensation now. Thank you.